Chapter 4. The New Kid on the Block. Since my father came back from Ohio, he really has been making a lot of effort in spending time with us. Mom and Pops was making up for lost time, and Pops literally took my brothers and I everywhere he went. My Pops didn't have a car to get around, so Cousin Reggie drove my Pops around for the time being until he was able to get a car. Pops still brought Amani and I along even if Reggie had to drive us around for a while. My father finally got a car a few months later. It was a Maximum station wagon. It wasn't a car that I was used to seeing my dad have. I was used to my father having high-class cars, like a Mercedes or a BMW. I remember before my Pops went to Ohio, my Pops owned a bunch of cars at the same time. Some he kept at the house, and some he left at a car body shop owned by this dude named Paul. Pops had a Mercedes, a BMW, and an all-white Lexus. The Lexus was my favorite because Pops customized it to his liking. Customizing the seats, the steering wheel, rims, tires, radio with speaker systems, and even put a small screen TV in the car with a small Sony PlayStation console connected to it. Sometimes my older brother and I used to play Madden on the PlayStation that was in the car while my father washed the car from the outside. I would also play it whenever he came to pick me up from school. The only reason he bought the station wagon is because of my baby brother being an addition to the family, and he figured it was better for the family to ride in. I started to see a change within my father in the way he acted, the way he spoke, the humbleness he carried around with him, and the way he presented himself. He transformed into a different person. He started to get tattoos on both his arms and wouldn't stop getting them until both his arms were fully covered. On his right arm was tattoos of our names, with Tyrell, Amani, Betty, which is my mother's name, and myself with a bunch of other different designs surrounding them. On his left arm was a tiger with red stripes. I think that's where I developed my love for tigers, because of that specific tattoo. It didn't stop there with the tattoos. His wardrobe changed as well. My father went out to the city one day and came back with a bunch of classy designer dress shirts, different pairs of leather plush dress shoes, and like 5 or more big black boxes with rainbow colored polka dots on them. I wanted to know what was in those boxes. So my father showed me, and within each of these big black boxes were different types of feather-lined fedora hats. It had to be like 3 in each one of the boxes, all in different colors, with each one having a feather on the side. I've never seen anything like it. My father even took me to the movies to go see Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones on a school night. When we got home, my mother was kinda upset. She didn't like the fact that my father took me out on a school night and then come home late afterwards. Pops didn't care though. He wanted to have fun and spend time with his son. So if he was going to do that, then he was going to do it on his own terms and could care less if anyone had a problem with it. A couple of months later, my parents decided that it was time to move out of the townhouse in Clinton and find another place for the family. Unfortunately, they couldn't find a place as soon as they had anticipated. So we had to move back into my grandmother's house on Cherryfield Road. Again. It was only temporary until we was able to find a place of our own. We stayed there for the entire summer. There wasn't much that happened during that time. That June, the entire family went to Ocean City. Whenever we went to Ocean City, we would meet up with my Aunt Mary, Uncle A, and my little cousin Danielle. They would come down from New York and usually be the first ones there. So when my family got to Ocean City, we would meet up either at the hotel or at the beach. I would sometimes get into the water, but not all the time because, like I said, I'm not a water person. Whenever I did get in the water, my older brother Tyrell used to play tricks on me. He would sneak up behind me, grab my legs, and pull me underwater to make me think I was drowning. My brother was an ass for doing things like that. I didn't enjoy the tricks, but he sure did. Fuck that. I feel more comfortable on land. I had enough of the dirty salt water. So I would just play in sand with my baby brother Armani and my baby cousin Danielle, helping them build sandcastles. Later on, after we spent most of the day at the beach, the family would go and find a restaurant to have dinner at. Then after dinner, the whole family would head down to the amusement park at the end of the boardwalk. That was the routine every time we went to Ocean City. One day, about a month later in July, some of our distant family members came over my grandmother's house to visit. Mrs. Joyce, her son Chucky, and Chucky's son Charles. We would only see them on special occasions like family reunions or cookouts. They stopped by to tell my pops that they had some extra tickets to a concert called the Scream Tour. The Scream Tour is a concert where they have all the hot young rap and R&B groups that's out in one show. The acts in this Scream Tour were IMX, aka Immature, B2K, and Lil Bow Wow as the headliner of the tour. Those were the only young artists that were big at that time. My father asked me if I wanted to go. I said yes. I only went because of Bow Wow. I was a fan of his music. I didn't care about seeing the other acts. The following weekend, it was time for the concert. The concert was held at the Verizon Center in DC, where the Washington Wizards have their games. It was my first time going to a concert, so I was excited. We decided to go a little later after the time the concert originally started because, like I said, I wasn't interested in seeing the other music acts. We arrived just before Bow got on stage. We had to meet up with Mrs. Joyce and Charles. We met up with them in a skybox, where you could see the whole venue. IMX had just finished their set, so we went and got something to eat while we waited for the show to continue. Afterwards, Bow Wow came out to perform. I can't lie, it was exciting to see him in concert. I sung along to his music and all. After the concert, my pops and I was walking in the hall, heading downstairs to leave the venue, when we saw this long line of kids that seemed endless. As we get closer to the beginning of the line, we see Bow Wow getting ready to take pictures with his fans. I was only a couple of feet away from him. "Do you want to take a picture with him?" my father asked. "No," I said. It was fun just seeing him in concert. There's no point in waiting in line for a picture. After that, I threw up the peace sign to Bow, and he threw one back. Then my father and I went on our way. As we're walking, my pop suddenly starts to laugh. "What's so funny, Dad?" I asked. "Man, Bow Wow is small. Y'all damn near the same size, Aaron," Pop said. "Well, he's only a teenager, Dad. I'm only like 8 years old," I said. "Yeah, but I didn't think he was that little," Pop said. I gotta admit, Bow was short back then, and still is. But I didn't care. Bow was a cool dude. Although my pops couldn't stop laughing at the fact that Bow Wow was so short. When we got home, my pops told my mother how he couldn't believe how short Bow was up close. I showed my mom the souvenirs I got from the concert. A green Bow Wow glow stick and a small poster picture of him. They gave it to us for free, so why not? That was my very first concert I ever went to, and the only one. I had a great time. That was the upside of that summer. The downside of it was the tension dwelling between the family. A bunch of stress on my parents trying to find a new place to live instead of us living under my grandmother. Arguments here and there. Things weren't looking so good. Especially between my older brother Tyrell and I. We started to fight a lot more than usual. Damn near every day. I remember one day me and Ty got into it. Things got so heated. I'm yelling, he's yelling, we're both yelling like we had no sense. After yelling stupid things to each other, Tyrell got mad and punched me right in the stomach. Damn, that hurt. I collapsed to the ground, on my knees holding my stomach. My body locked up and my windpipe tightened. I couldn't breathe. It was a feeling I've never felt before. I looked up at Tyrell while he just watches me gasp for air. And the look on his face was a look of no sympathy. He just didn't give a fuck. All Tyrell can say was, "You are so weak. You can't even take a punch to the gut. You're nothing but a weak punk." My grandmother heard all the noise and came halfway down the stairs to the basement. "What's going on with all that noise y'all making down there?" she asked. She saw me gasping for air, so she knew something happened. "What's wrong with you, Aaron? What happened? Tell me what's wrong," she said. I couldn't speak. It was hard to try to speak because I was still trying to regain air in my body. Once I got myself together, I told her what happened. Then she separated us from each other. About a week later, my Uncle A. Graves, Aunt Mary, and little cousin Danielle came down to visit. When they got there, my aunt and grandmother made plans to go shopping and took Danielle along with them. Uncle A. Graves went out as well because he had some errands to run. My little brother was still at daycare and my parents were still at work. So it was just me and Tyrell left at the house. Despite our past disputes with each other, I still wanted to be close with my older brother. You know, to have someone to look up to. I wanted to get to know Tyrell for who he really is and hope he would want to do the same. So while everyone was out, I wanted to play some basketball in the front yard, but I didn't want to play by myself. I wanted to play with Tyrell. Tyrell was laying on the floor in the living room glued to the television. So I got up the courage to go and asked him if he would play ball with me. "Hey Ty, can you play ball with me?" I asked. I get no response. He didn't even move an inch or turn his head to acknowledge me. I asked again, "Would you like to play ball with me, Ty?" Still no response. "Come on, Ty, I want to play with you," I said. "Well, I don't," Tyrell yelled. "I don't want to do anything with you. Just leave me alone." After that, I didn't want to play ball anymore. I just sat on the stairs that was right in front of the front door of the house. What Tyrell just said to me really hurt my feelings and spirit. So I sat by myself and I started to cry, waiting for my hero to come home, which was my dad. After crying and sitting, waiting for about 2 hours on the stairs, my Uncle A. Graves come back from running his errands. "Hey, Aaron Bobaron, what's cracking?" he says as he's walking through the front door. I didn't respond. He noticed that I was crying and came over, kneeled down, then asked me what was the matter. I told him that Tyrell didn't want to play with me and that he didn't like me. "Oh man, that can't be true," he said. But it was just too obvious. I mean, I wouldn't be crying for nothing. So to make me feel better, my Uncle A. Graves took me golfing and putt-putting at this golf course down the street from my grandmother's house. That was the first time I learned how to golf from my uncle. He taught me how to hold the club properly, how to stand straight, and the basic fundamentals of the sport. Now you hold the upper part of the club with your left hand and the lower part of the club with your right hand. Make sure you firmly grasp it, Aaron. Have a good grip on it, but not too tight of a grip and also not too loose of a grip. You're controlling the club, controlling your body, and controlling where you want the golf ball to go," he said. "Stand straight, Spread your legs just a little and hunch over a little bit. Look at your target. Once you pinpoint your target, you draw back. When you're about to come down on the swing, make sure you twist your back leg, which in this case would be your right leg, to the front along with your body, or in the direction you are hitting the ball. Focus on the ball, hit it, and then watch the ball glide through the air into your target. It's not about strength or how hard you hit it. It's about control, precision, and proper movement. That was the very first thing I ever learned from my Uncle Eddie Graves. He was my hero that day. After our time together on the golf course, what happened between Tyrell and I was the last thing on my mind. That following September, school started again, and I was starting 3rd grade. The school districts in Prince George's County only allowed uniforms to be worn at school. The students had to wear white shirts with black or navy blue khaki pants. I hated wearing uniforms. All the boys would have to keep their shirts tucked in our pants. But we never did. It just felt too uncomfortable. Sometimes we would untuck our shirts just to make the teachers mad. "Tuck in your shirt, young man," the teachers would say. That October, the state of Maryland was shocked and changed forever. The holiday Halloween is supposed to be a joyful and fun day where kids can dress up in costumes, then go out to get candy. Unfortunately, for the state of Maryland, Halloween became a reality. A nightmare would be the best way to describe it. On October the 2nd, 2002, a man was shot and killed in the parking lot of a grocery store in Montgomery County. The police didn't find no evidence of the shooting. The next day, October the 3rd, 5 more shootings occurred, and 5 people were individually killed within the same metropolitan area. The police revealed that they discovered a shell casing at one of the murder scenes that seemed to be from a high-powered weapon or a sniper rifle. It was revealed to the state of Maryland that there was a sniper on the loose. They called him the DC Sniper. Throughout the month of October, the DC Sniper wreaked havoc on Washington, D.C. and Virginia, randomly choosing his victims and killing them at public places. The police had trouble finding the killer. About a week later, the DC Sniper shot a kid outside at a public school. The kid survived, but the fear became much more overwhelming. After the shooting at the school, all the schools within Washington, D.C. were to keep all the students inside. So that meant no more recess for a while. I remember my parents always told me and my older brother during that time to always pay attention to our surroundings whenever we was outside or going in and out of school. It was a time period where you were scared to even leave your house because you were afraid of the possibility of being shot. People used to walk or run in zigzag form coming out of the stores. Then there were other people who would just duck while running, trying to get to their cars. The whole thing was just crazy. On October 24th, the DC snipers were found and arrested. Later on, the police revealed that they committed the murders in the trunk of the car that they were driving in, a blue 1990 Chevy Caprice. The killing spree lasted for 21 days, with 10 people killed and 3 to 5 people injured. Even after the killers were caught, people were still scared to walk out their house. Schools still didn't allow students to have recess for a long time. After school, the teachers would have to escort the students to their buses or watch over them until their parents came to pick them up and until all the students left the school. It took a while for things to get back to normal. A few months later, my school was having a talent show. I really didn't have any talents back then, but I was interested in trying out for it. Later that day, I went home and tried to figure out what I was good at. The only thing that came to mind was yo-yoing. That was the only thing that I could think of that I was good at and enjoyed doing from time to time. I only knew a few tricks, but thought it was a good enough act to run with, and thought there was no other people with this kind of act. I mean, how many people you know can yo-yo? I went to the tryouts and did my yo-yo routine. I did my little tricks and spins with ease, without any mess-ups. They accepted me in the talent show and said I did good. The talent show was a week away, and I wanted to be ready for it. So I practiced and practiced every single day. I even tried to learn some new tricks. I felt confident that I was going to do good. The day of the school talent show finally arrived, and let me tell you, I was nervous as hell. All my confidence just went out the window. All the students that was in the talent show had to wait in the school's front lobby until their name was called to come up to the stage. The talent show was held in the school's cafeteria, and half the school was in there. As time went by and each contestant was called, I got even more nervous because I knew I was close to being called next to perform. I wasn't nervous because I had stage fright. It was because I didn't want to screw up my act in front of everybody. Finally, they called my name, and I got myself together. I went up on stage, and the host asked me, "What talent will you perform today?" I told them I would be doing yo-yo tricks. They started playing music and told me I could start to perform. I looked towards the crowd, and I did my routine. Everything went well. For the first damn 30 seconds, oh my goodness, my routine started to fall apart. My tricks started to get sloppy. The yo-yo string was getting tangled. Then I had to untangle it, wasting my time. The yo-yo wouldn't stop spinning. At one point, I did the around the world trick and the yo-yo nearly knocked me upside my head. I just choked completely. My routine just sucked, man. I was some trash. I get accepted into the show and practiced all that time just to choke. After time was up, I just walked off stage. I was so embarrassed. Later on at recess, some of my classmates were clowning me about how I choked on stage. "Nigga, did you see when that yo-yo knocked you upside your head?" "Nigga, you should went up there as a comedian, cause that was funny as shit." Some of the girls were saying things to try to cheer me up. "Don't listen to him, Aaron. You did your best. You'll do better next time." Huh? There would be no next time. I had my share of talent shows, and one is enough for me. I'm not doing this again. Fuck that. On May 1st of 2003, I was riding around with my pops after he just picked me up from school. He was telling me how he wanted to take my little brother and I to the premiere show of the new movie X-Men 2, United. I asked my pops if he realized that it was a Thursday and a school night. "Yeah, I know it's a school night. So what? Do you want to go see the movie or not?" Pops said. If my pops didn't care, why should I? Later that night, my pops, Amani, and I headed out to go see the midnight opening premiere of X-Men 2. We headed out to the city, then headed to the biggest movie theater that they had in the area and got our tickets early. After buying our tickets, we headed to a dine-in restaurant and ate dinner to pass the time. After dinner, we went back to the movie theater and sat in the car waiting for the 12 o'clock marker to come around. A few minutes before 12, we went inside the theater. The place was packed. The front lobby was full of long lines stretching outside the entrance of people waiting to see the new X-Men movie. After we took our seats and the movie started, the crowd within the theater erupted with excitement and cheered while clapping because the movie was starting. My brother Amani was sitting on my pop's lap, and after a few minutes into the movie, my brother Amani fell asleep in my father's arms. Lil Armani can't hang. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning by the time the movie ended and we left it there. We all had fun regardless of the time, and I would never forget it. Remember when I said that after school my mom would pick me up and take me to her job? Then I would have to wait for hours until she got off? Well, sometimes after she would get off, she would have to go to the salon for a hair appointment right after. I know I said I hated going to my mother's job, but what I hated even more was going to a beauty salon with my mother. Whenever we went, it was the same routine just like it was at her job. I had to sit and wait. Having to sit around a bunch of female strangers with the whole place reeking of scented shampoos, burning hair from hot iron combs, females talking loud, gossiping, and strong nail polish made me uncomfortable and out of my zone. My mom was friends with the owner of the beauty salon. Mrs. Trisha was her name. She was a nice lady and loved when I came around, but I just didn't like being stuck at the salon. My father would stop by every now and again just to check up on moms, just like he would do at her job. Sometimes he would come bearing flowers and gifts for my mother, and then talk to some of the females there, talk to my mother, and then roll up out of there. On some occasions, they would have a small argument. They would start to have good small talk until seconds later, it would turn into an argument. They argued about different things, but majority of the time, my pops argued with moms about me actually being at the salon. My father hated when I had to sit up in the salon with my mother for hours. After they would talk, pops would just take me with him so I would no longer have to stay up in there. I even got my hair cut there once, which I didn't like. My pops usually cut my hair, but my parents were separated at that point, so my mother took me to Miss Trisha's hair salon. Big mistake. At that time, Miss Trisha hired this male hairstylist / barber. I had a bad feeling about this from the get-go, and I'll tell you why. Number 1. Why in his hell would you take your own child to get his hair cut at a damn beauty salon instead of taking him to a regular barbershop like normal people? I don't have long Fabio hair. I don't got no soft, smooth perm that could be cut with scissors. No! I got short, curly hair that needs to be cut with clippers. Number 2. I have never, ever in my whole life seen a nigga cut hair in a beauty salon, surrounded by a bunch of females. I'm just saying, this is just me. So anyway, my mother introduced me to him, and I'm already not digging the vibe from him. The way he talked and acted around the females, now that I look back on it, he probably was gay, to be completely honest with you. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. I was immediately uncomfortable sitting in his chair. But then again, I would have been uncomfortable with anybody for that matter because I was so used to my dad cutting my hair. I didn't want anyone else touching my hair but my dad. Unfortunately, I had to deal with this new guy, who made it even more uncomfortable once he started to cut my hair. He was grabbing and brushing my head too rough. I'm a little tender-headed. He would gossip with the other females, not looking at what he was doing. And to top it all off, after he was done cutting my hair and asked me how it looked, I looked in the mirror and started to feel my head. Come to find out, I had a big old bald spot on the back of my head. This nigga just gave me a patch on the back of my head. Man, I knew this was a bad idea, I thought. At that point, I was truly upset. My mother came over to see, and I told her I had a patch on the back of my head. He apologized for the haircut, but I was still mad. I was more mad at my mother than I was at the hairstylist. My hair is all messed up now. Why you had to take me to a hair salon? I said. I'm sorry, sweetie. I didn't know that was going to happen. But everything is going to be alright, Mom said. Oh yeah, you get to walk out with your hair done looking all nice and pretty, while I walk out with a jacked up haircut and a bald spot on the back of my head, I shouted as I started to tear up like a little punk. I'm sorry, Aaron, Mom said. Don't ever take me there ever again, I said. After that, I didn't speak to my mother for the whole ride home. She must have said, I'm sorry, a million times before we arrived home. After living with my grandmother for a few months, my parents finally found a new place for us to live. We moved into a ground floor apartment in Heather Hills. I have very little memory of the moments I had living in Heather Hills. There wasn't really that many moments there at all. And all the moments I do remember are bad. To be honest, I would say living in Heather Hills was the start of my family's downfall. The night we moved in, my father took me and showed me around the apartment. After the tour of the apartment, my pop showed me the bedrooms and said I get to choose which one I wanted. There were 3 bedrooms next to each other. The master bedroom was my parents' room, but there was 2 empty rooms across from each other that I was able to choose from. Alright, look here, Aaron. I want you to choose what bedroom you want for you and your younger brother to share, Pop said. One of them is bigger, and the other one is smaller, but the bigger room will have the big screen TV in it, and the smaller room will have a pull-out couch. So of course I chose the bigger room with the big screen TV in it. Around that time period, everything was going swell for the moment. My father bought a new SUV for the family to travel in whenever we went on family trips. We never went anywhere special when we went on family trips, just to New York and back. We did so frequently that there was no excitement to it anymore. We always went to go see family or party at my aunt and uncle's. Whenever the family did have a party, my father would always isolate himself in a bedroom away from the crowd and watch TV, or go to sleep through the whole party. Sometimes I would join him to keep him company. After a few trips to NY, I started to notice that my pop started to bring this black briefcase with him every single time. I just figured that he liked to take his work on the road. Eventually, the frequent trips started to die down, and things started to slowly fall apart. One night while I was chilling in my room, the lights instantly cut off. Pitch black. We couldn't do nothing in the house. My parents decided that my family had to spend the night at my grandmother's house. My father didn't like the idea though. A month later, the same thing happened again. The lights went off. This time, I noticed that our neighbor's lights were on, except for ours. This is getting ridiculous, Pop said. This time, the whole family sat in the living room and waited to see if the lights would come back on. About 3 to 4 hours later, the lights came back on. Somebody didn't pay the electric bill. My parents' relationship started to spiral out of control. Again. It's like every time they start to get along, kiss and make up, something always happens and the situation would be bigger than the last time they fought, therefore causing them to split up. Once in a while arguments turned into frequent arguments. There were times they argued every day. Some days they wouldn't even speak to each other. They'd just walk around the apartment not saying a word. My father would choose to sleep on the couch and my mother would sleep in the bedroom by herself. I didn't like what I was seeing at all. I've always wanted to see my parents together, loving each other. Not fighting, yelling, and screaming at each other. Seeing my parents not being able to sleep in the same bed, let alone being in the same room together, made the household look divided. Shit, it was divided for that matter. But there was this one particular fight between these two that really changed everything and really fucked me up in the process. One day my parents went into their bedroom and closed the door to have a discussion. My older brother was in his own room watching TV. I was in my bedroom with my baby brother Amani sitting on my bed watching SpongeBob on the TV. About an hour goes by and I start to hear my parents' voices getting louder. I started to think that they were talking pretty loud. Loud enough that I had to turn up my TV. My parents' room was next door to mine's, with paper-thin walls separating the two rooms. So I was able to hear what they were saying clearly. I heard the words money, selfish, hypocrite, and other keywords being used in their conversation. Their loud voices turned into yelling. Then, out of nowhere, I start to hear banging coming up against the walls, things being thrown around, and hearing glass being broken. As I was sitting on my bed, I looked across the hall into my older brother's room to see if he hears the loud noise our parents were making, and to see if he was just as concerned as I was. But he wasn't concerned at all. He was just glued to the TV set. It was like he was in a trance, so to speak. The expression on his face showed that he didn't give a damn about what was happening between our parents. A few seconds later, my father opened their bedroom door and stormed out. "I can't take this shit no more, bae. I'm tired of arguing with you," Pops yelled. "No, we're not done here. How you going to just walk away from the conversation?" Mom said. "Bae, I'm walking away because you're pushing me over the edge and you're going to cause me to do something I'ma regret. So leave me be," Pop said. I got up and stood in the doorway of my room and watched as they continued to scream at each other. My father went back into the bedroom. I left my doorway and stood in front of my parents' doorway. I saw both my mother and father up in each other's faces. They were so engaged into the fight that they didn't notice me standing in front of their door. As I continued to watch them scream and holler, I started to look around my parents' bedroom from where I was standing from. The room was all torn up. Clothes on the floor that looked like they've been ripped from their hanger, broken glass on the floor from damaged picture frames, and their television tossed upside down against the wall. It looked like a tornado ran through this place. I turned away from the commotion to look at my older brother in his room, only to see him still sitting watching TV as if nothing was going on. I looked at him like, why are you just sitting there allowing this to happen? I thought. I turned back to look at my parents, only to find them actually wrestling with each other. My mother started to hit on my father while he was trying to push her out of his face, but she kept getting in his face and hitting him. Then my father grabbed both her arms and pinned her down to the bed. My mother was able to break free one of her arms and began to grab and hit my father in the head, struggling to break free. They were fighting so wildly that I couldn't tell what they was trying to do to each other. To me, it looked like he was trying to choke her, and she was trying to get free. It seemed like time slowed down, and they were fighting forever. I ran to get my older brother Tyrell out of his room so he could stop them from fighting. "Tyrell, Mom and Dad are fighting," I yelled. Tyrell jumped up and ran into their room. My brother Tyrell got in between my parents, pushing my father away from my mother, protecting her by leaning backwards on her. "Stop it! Chill out! It's over! It's over!" Tyrell said. "Are you fucking crazy? You really gonna make me act this way in front of my kids? In front of my own kids? You out of your fucking mind!" Pops yelled as he stormed out the room and walked into the living room. "Fuck you, Adam! How dare you put your hands on me? Nigga, you lost your fucking mind!" Mom screamed as she followed Pops into the living room. My older brother went back into his room. I stood in my parents' room in shock. I started to hear my parents holler at each other in the living room. Then I heard the sound of glass shattering. I ran into the living room to see what happened. When I got there, I saw my mother pinned up against the dining room table by my father, scratching and clawing at him to get loose. Overcome by fear, I just stood there in total shock and disbelief. I was so terrified by what I saw that I just froze up. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't sure if my father was trying to restrain my mother, or was really trying to hurt her, or simply them hurting each other for that matter. I finally snapped out of it and ran to get my older brother, yelling his name as I got closer to his room. "Tyrell, Mom and Dad are fighting again," I yelled. Tyrell got up and ran out to the living room. While my brother was in the process of running, he accidentally pushed me out the way in a haste to get by, causing me to hit the wall and fall to the ground. I got up off the floor and proceeded to the living room. Tyrell got between the two again and stopped them from fighting. "That's enough. It's over. It's over. No more of this," said Tyrell. My parents still were yelling at each other. I couldn't believe what had just happened. All I could do was run back into my room, lay down on my bed, and cry my eyes out. A few minutes later, my father came into my room and sat on the side of my bed. "Aaron, are you okay?" Pops asked. "Come here, son. Let me talk to you." Pops saw that I was crying, so he pulled me real close to him and held me under his right arm. "Talk to me, Aaron. Tell me what's wrong," Pop said. I told him I didn't like the fact that I saw both my mother and himself trying to harm each other. "I'm sorry you had to see that, Aaron. I know that was hard to watch, but everything's okay now," Pop said. My father talked to me for another minute or so and tried to calm me down. "Look here, Aaron. I got to go for right now, but I'll be back, okay? Just know that I love you very much, okay?" he said as he stared into my eyes. He then gave me a kiss on my forehead, and I watched him walk out of the room. Then heard him leave the apartment, slamming the front door behind him. I continued to cry while laying down. My mother walked into my room seconds later and sat next to me. She asked me what was wrong. I didn't respond. She then sat me up and gave me a hug, clenching me tight in her arms. I told her I didn't like seeing her and Pops fight. She told me that everything is going to be alright and gave me a kiss on the forehead as well. She then told me that she had to leave out for a while and that she'll be back soon. My mother laid me back down and proceeded to walk out the front door of the apartment. Once I heard that front door close, I started to cry even harder than before. For the first time in my life, I felt alone and cold, a blood-curdling sensation of pain in my gut. My body tightening as I lay on my chilling bed, curled up in the fetal position as I cried myself to sleep. A few days later, I was riding in the car with my pops, and he tried to explain his actions of the situation. "Look here, Aaron. I just want you to know that I wasn't trying to hurt your mother. I just grabbed her to make her stop hitting me. I tried to walk away from the argument, but she wouldn't let me. We were wrong on both ends of the situation. I just want to apologize on my behalf of the situation," Pops said. It wasn't long before Pops decided to move out and get a place for himself. Again. He moved into an apartment a couple of blocks down from Heather Hills, just so he could be close to his kids. Around the same time, Pops was able to get a new car. To tell you the truth, it wasn't new at all. It was an old rusty Honda, a burgundy brownish color car with some of the paint chipping off. On the passenger side of the car, the door was a different color than the other doors, indicating that the door piece came from a different Honda car and attached it to this car. The inside material was all torn open where you could see the cotton and safety cushion inside the seats. Some of the torn material on the passenger side was covered with strong brown duct tape. My pops would come and pick me up from school in that car, and we would go to his apartment. This wasn't a car I was used to my father having. I was used to seeing him with flashy cars, Benzes, BMWs, street cars, etc. Based off what I've heard from my parents' previous fights about money, I couldn't help but think that money was tight for Pops, and that's why he was driving this raggedy ass car. He made it work though, fixed the car up the best that he could, and called it the Who Ride. For someone who liked flashy cars, he sure did know how to make having a B-up car seem cool. We would chill at his place for a little while, watching movies like the Cash Money Millionaires concert, Spawn, Beach Street, or we would play NFL Game Day football on the Sony PlayStation until it was time for him to take me home. It was weird not having both my parents under the same roof. Whenever my pops left, it always left a strange void within me. I couldn't understand that feeling or grasp what it was. All I knew that it was a never-ending cycle that just kept repeating, and repeating without no let up to it at all. Once everything started to get back on track, the cycle would come back around and hit us even harder than the last go round. You would think I would have gotten used to it because my parents split up so many times, but I didn't. I don't know anyone that could. After months flew by, I started to feel like a burden and not loved by my mother. I started to see a change in her that I didn't like. She didn't speak too much around the house, and it was very hard to get her attention. It almost seemed like she was a zombie. There were times I wanted to talk to her or needed someone to talk to, but I never was able to get her to listen to me or pay attention. She acted like she didn't want to be bothered or either is stuck to the TV. Even when I start to talk to her, she starts to zone out and wouldn't hear a word I said to her. I would then walk away disappointed. She'll rather watch TV and be busy than talk to me? My own mother, I thought. She wouldn't notice I left her presence until later on. I couldn't help but think that if it was me that was the problem, or if it was my father and the issues that they had with each other that made her this way. Whenever my brother Tyrell spoke to Moms, everything was going swell between those two. She had all the time in the world for Tyrell, but when it came to me, it seemed that she just blocked me out every single time. Like I just didn't exist to her. I can't lie. I was actually jealous of my older and younger brother because I felt they got all the love and attention from my mother. My little brother Amani, I could understand. He was the baby of the family, so he needed the attention. But my older brother Tyrell seemed like he was her favorite because he was her first child. I figured that's why they were so close. My best friend, who was my father, no longer lived with us. The times he was around, I only saw him a couple of hours of the day. Sometimes I wouldn't even see him at all. It seemed like I was overlooked a lot during those times. Being the middle child was never easy to me. My parents started to reconcile their differences and build their relationship back up after almost a year of separation. After they solved all their problems, my parents moved the family out of the apartment in Heather Hills and moved into a new apartment in Henson Creek, which was literally the neighborhood next to Heather Hills. It was right around the corner. It felt good to be back in my old neighborhood, but weird at the same time because I didn't know anybody around there. I was going to have to make some new friends soon. Around this time, I was going to be starting 5th grade soon. So I spent most of the summer getting ready, while also spending more time with my pops because he was back living with us. I spent every single second and moment with Pops that summer. I would help him work on his motorcycle and we would take a ride on it afterwards. We would go to the car wash and we would wash the family car together. I even started working out with Pops. He would take daily jogs and I started to tag along. Jogging with my pops didn't last long though. He started to feel like I couldn't keep up and that I was slowing him down. One day, while I was helping my dad fix up the family car, this cute light-skinned girl came over and introduced herself. If I could remember, her name was Deloria. She looked about the same age as me, around 11 or 12. She started to tell my pops how cute she thought I was. Deloria and I began to get more acquainted, and right away, I could tell Shorty had a huge crush on me. At that time, I didn't understand why she liked me. I used to think that I was ugly because of how kids used to tease me about my birthmark being on my face and neck. For that reason, I felt that my birthmark was a curse and that I wasn't normal. That all changed after all the compliments Deloria gave me right then and there. "You have a real nice smile, and I like your birthmark on the side of your face," she said. "Why you like my birthmark?" I asked. "It makes you look cute. I've never seen anything like it," she said. "I don't like it. I think it makes me look weird," I said. "Don't say that. It just means you got something no one else has. It makes you different from everyone else. It means that you're special," she said. "No one ever said that to me before," I responded. We kicked it for a little while longer, then I decided to head back over to my father. I told my father about what Deloria said about my birthmark. "She's right, Aaron. That mark on your face and neck do make you special. Don't listen to those people who tell you you're ugly or make fun of your birthmark. That birthmark is a part of you. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise," Pop said. My mother used to tell me the same thing. I asked my father where I got my birthmark from. He told me it was from my mother eating too much spicy foods and shellfish when she was pregnant with me, when she wasn't supposed to. Shellfish as in crabs and shrimp, if you didn't know. I wasn't sure if the story was true or not. One thing I was sure of was that my mother loved her some crabs, shrimp, and spicy food. So it kinda made sense, but then again it kinda didn't. I started 5th grade that late August. I attended my old school from when I started kindergarten at J. Frank Dent. I was nervous because I was meeting new people. Everyone knew who each other was because of their previous school year. I was the only new student there. Right off the bat, I could tell that none of my classmates liked me. They wouldn't even speak to me, and they would try to find any reason to pick on me. I knew they was doing this because I was the new kid. This kid named Dylan, who was one of my classmates, was the only one who treated me different. Dylan was one of the popular kids and a heartthrob to all the girls. Dylan and I got tight pretty quick. I found out that he lived in the same apartment building as I did and lived below me on the ground floor. Dylan and I hung around each other a lot, and our classmates didn't like the fact that Dylan was becoming close friends with the new kid. My classmates started to think that I was gay, or called me gay because Dylan was the only person I hung out with at the time. I definitely wasn't gay. Dylan felt bad for me because he knew I wasn't gay and tried to tell everyone I wasn't to get them to lay off of me, but it didn't work. I later told my dad about being harassed by my classmates and being called gay. You shouldn't listen to everything people say. Don't let harmful words get to you. I know you're not gay. You know you're not gay. As long as you know that, then that's all that matters, Pop said. I took my father's advice, and after a while, the negativity had little effect on me. It seemed like the negativity I was receiving from my peers would never stop, but I soon saw that the negativity would all change. One day in the school's cafeteria, my class was near the end of our lunch period. I was standing by the double door entrance while talking to one of my classmates named Barrington. Barrington was asking me if I ever been in a fight, and if I had to, would I fight anyone in the class? No, I haven't been in an actual fight, I said. Billy, who was another classmate of mine, came over and joined the conversation. Billy was a fat dude and the 5th grade bully. Nobody wanted a problem with Billy. Niggas were scared to fight him because his weight made him look bigger. I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover. I don't like to fight, I said. That's because you gay, nigga, Billy said. Ooh, you gonna let him talk to you like that, Aaron? You don't got heart? What you gonna do? Said Barrington, trying to instigate and hype everything up. He ain't gonna do nothing cause he's gay, Billy said, while pushing me a few times in the process. I pretended to laugh, then I suddenly rushed him. As I tackled him, both Billy and I busted through the cafeteria double doors and fell on the ground of the school front lobby. We both got up off the ground and squared off in the lobby. All the students go nuts as they rushed over. I went in to throw some punches. I hit Billy in the face with my left, then my right. After I would hit him, Billy would just grab my arms and twirl me around to make me fall down. Billy was taller than me, so I had to reach up to hit him, which made it easy for him to grab my arms and throw me around. After Billy would throw me on the ground, I would get back up and continue to try to hit him a few more times. Some of my punches would connect, but he would just find a way to throw me back down again. The fight would last about another minute or so until some teachers finally broke it up. I was sent to the office and was told that I had to stay after school for detention. Billy somehow didn't get in trouble. Isn't that a bitch? The school notified my mother and told her I had to stay after. I stayed for detention, but had to walk home after it was over. As I was getting closer to my home, I noticed that Billy was standing outside his apartment building, talking to his homeboy Jazz, who also was a fellow classmate, and a heavy-set dark-skinned nigga who happened to be my next-door neighbor. Billy lived down the street from me. In order to get to my house, I had to pass by his. The three of them saw me walking up, and when I got close enough, Billy approached me. So you want to finish what we started, nigga? Billy said. I looked at him with a straight face and told him I don't need to fight him again. The dark-skinned, heavy-set dude was trying to figure out the problem between us two and tried to resolve the issue. I decided not to waste time with them, so I continued to keep on walking. As I got closer to my apartment, I heard Jazz yelling, "Run, Aaron, run!" I looked back and saw that Billy was coming after me. Jazz continued to tell me to run, yelling from a distance. I was a few feet away from my apartment building, so I ran to the building and up the stairs and arrived at my front door. At this time, I didn't have a key to the apartment because my mother felt I didn't need one since my older brother got home from school before me. The thing I hated about not having a key was to deal with my older brother opening the door. Every time that I would get home from school, I would have to knock on the front door so he could let me in. And every single time, my brother Tyrell would play stupid, silly games or play tricks on me from the other side of the door. He wouldn't open the door until he was finished joking around with me. Sometimes he wouldn't even open the door at all, and I'll be stuck outside, or I would go to Dylan's apartment and chill there until I could get a hold of my mother on the phone. After I got to my front door, after running from Billy, I started to bang on the door so Tyrell can let me in. Meanwhile, I see that Billy is still after me. Keep in mind that Billy is fat and slow, so you would think that I would have plenty of time to get in my house without him catching me. I bang on the door some more and yell Tyrell's name. No answer. By the third time I banged on the door, Billy had caught up to me and jumped me from behind. He beat my ass down, constantly throwing punch after punch. As I'm getting beat up against the door, I hear my brother come to the door and say in a playful voice, "Who is it?" Billy heard my brother on the other side of the door and ran downstairs out of the building. I get up and yell for Tyrell to open the door. "Open the door, Tyrell!" I said. "Who is it?" Tyrell said, still playing around and laughing. "Come on, Tyrell, open the door. I'm hurt." Finally, he opened the door. "Why are you playing around? Why didn't you open the door when I told you to?" I yelled while in pain. Tyrell started laughing. "What's the matter with you?" he asked. I got jumped right here by the door, and you're sitting here playing around." He started to laugh even harder now. I just told my older brother that I just got jumped, and all this nigga could do is laugh. That immediately made me feel ashamed to have Tyrell as a brother. "It's not funny," I yelled. Later on that evening, I told my parents about the fight at school and about me getting jumped. My father was furious. He didn't like when I get into fights just like I did. I was a gentle little boy who probably wouldn't hurt a fly, and he understood this. That's how he wanted to raise me. You're not supposed to go around intentionally hurting people for no reason at all. Just walk away, no matter what people may think of you afterwards. My mother, on the other hand, wasn't mad at me at all. She never got mad when I got into fights. She was all about the fighting and defending yourself. I didn't like to fight at all, and she didn't like that, nor understand that about me. My parents also got on my brother Tyrell for the door situation. My mom allowed me to stay home from school the next day. I can't lie, I was afraid of getting jumped again. Getting jumped is not a good feeling, no matter if it's just one person doing it or multiple people. Who would want to get jumped twice, let alone once? Later that night, my father and I went over to Billy's house to resolve the issue. The next day at school, everything seemed to change for me. Some of my peers would just stare at me for no reason. Others would just walk up to me smiling and give me dap. Half of those people I didn't even know. My classmate Barrington later explained to me what all the recognition from all my peers was about. "Yo, Aaron, everybody's still talking about that fight you had with Billy the other day. They can't stop talking about it. You're the first and only nigga to ever stand up and fight Big Billy. Niggas used to be afraid of this dude, and you're the only one that fought him. And you're a little nigga. Everybody knows you now, man." Wow. I can't believe I'm actually getting respect from my peers. All because I fought a normal fat dude that people claim to be afraid of. Last week everyone was calling me gay, and now this week they are calling me by my actual name. Aaron, the nigga who went toe to toe with the big bad school bully. It's wrong to treat someone you don't even know about horribly for no reason one day, then praise that same person the next day because he or she did something negative that you think is positive. That's with anything negative. In my case, it was a fight. My peers think I'm no longer gay because I fought a bully. That's stupid, I thought. But back then, I was just glad that I got everyone off my back. Though it might have seemed that I gained a little bit of respect from my peers, I was far from done. I wasn't at the point of having everyone's full respect. Throughout the month, I would be in a series of fights. One day in class, Barrington approached me talking about how everybody wants to see where my heart is at. "Yo, son, everybody wants to know if you got heart," he said. "What? But I just fought Billy not too long ago. Hasn't that proved that I got heart?" I said. "Yeah, you fought Billy, but I bet you won't fight Trey." Trey was another 5th grader, but just in a different class than us. I didn't know who Trey was, nor have I ever met him before. But from what Barrington was telling me, it sounded like Trey was one of the best fighters everyone knew. After some thought, I agreed to meet up with Trey. Barrington was able to get someone to spread the word to Trey. Barrington said we would have to fight in the boys' restroom. The boys' restroom was the hangout spot for all the 5th grade boys. Sometimes the boys would sneak out of class or lunch period to go hang out in there. The time came for Trey and I to finally meet up. Trey and I had different lunch periods. So during my class lunch period, Barrington, Big Billy, and I chilled in the boys' restroom, along with a couple of other 5th grade boys from different classes, and waited until Trey was able to sneak out of his class. Trey finally arrived along with his classmate named Dimitri, a tall, dark-skinned dude. When I first saw Trey, I couldn't believe how short the nigga was. The dude was shorter than me, and I was a little dude. He looked like a tiny Lil Wayne with braids. Even though he wasn't what I expected, I still didn't underestimate my opponent. In the back of my mind, I knew that I was going to lose, but it seemed that I had to prove myself to these cats. Win or lose. Alright, now that Trey made it here, let's get started. We want y'all to go to the body. Y'all can only hit each other in the body area. Nothing below or above your body can be hit. So no aiming for the face and no low blows. If you hit your opponent in the face or low blow them, then you lose, Barrington explained. Trey and I began to go to the body. I began to rush him and get my shots in. But after a while, Trey turned the tables on me and began to light my ass up, throwing a barrage of punches. The fight ended after Trey backed me up against the wall. Hands down, Trey won that fight, but I got mad love from everyone because I had the heart to fight him. I finally got accepted by my peers, although there were people that still didn't cut me any slack. One day, at the end of school, everyone was just sitting around socializing and waiting to be released from the classroom. I was sitting by myself on the other side of the classroom, minding my own business, until one of my female classmates, named Taria Miles, started wilding out. She started running off at the mouth and talking crap to a lot of the boys in the class. Taria didn't mention my name for no reason at all. I got up and went over to see what was her issue with me. Out of nowhere, she decided to show off in front of the class and get in my face talking shit. I calmly and nicely asked her to back out of my face, but she continued to holler and get up in my face. I asked her about 3 times, but she was still carrying on. So I just pushed her out of my face and she damn near flipped over a big circle table where a couple of the students were sitting. She hopped back up quick to make it seem like she wasn't embarrassed and acted like nothing just happened. That was my first time I ever intentionally put my hands on a woman. At that time and moment, I didn't have any remorse or care that I pushed her. But later that day, I started to feel guilty for what I did. Some of the dudes in the class laughed and had a different opinion about it. That bitch almost flew across the table. Don't feel bad, Aaron. She was a bitch to everyone. She deserved it, they would say. That still doesn't make it right. I knew I was completely wrong for what I did. If you are reading this, Taria, then I'm truly sorry for what I did. I know some of you reading this is like, oh, all you did was push it, Aaron. It's not that serious. It doesn't matter whether it's a push or not. No man should ever put their hands on a woman, no matter what the circumstances are. Females are a precious and beautiful gift God made for man to love, not hurt. I feel when you hurt a woman in any way, you're actually hurting yourself. That's how I see it. If you don't understand that last line I just said, or want to look deeper into what I'm talking about, then I suggest that you read the book of Genesis and learn where females come from. About 2 weeks later, I would get into another fight with this new kid named Steven in our music class after I pushed him through a set of chairs for pestering me. I could tell you that I probably fought every single guy in that school. Some people just wanted to fight me just because everybody else was on the list of people I fought. I even fought Barrington once out of fun, and fought Big Billy's best friend Jazz, who ended up being tight with me and thought I was a funny dude to be around. I used to walk home by myself when school let out, but ever since I got accepted, the kids in my neighborhood wanted me to walk home with them. There wasn't much to do around my neighborhood of Henson Creek. Even though we were suburban kids, we lived in a poor suburban area with very little to do. To entertain ourselves, we would fight for no reason at all, or even play football. Most of the time, we would just play rough contact football, either on the dirt fields that was around the neighborhood or in the streets, while some of the ghetto girls stood on the sidewalk watching us play as they talked gossip with each other. That was an everyday thing, and I enjoyed every second of it.